Well, this is a emergency podcast, episode 115, Dank times Danker Thoughts. I did not plan to record today, it being such a beautiful Friday, and I wanted to be outside. But when I woke up this morning to that awful notification that Roe v. Wade's overturned, um, I knew today was not going to be business as usual. And I'm not ashamed to say that I cried this morning. I didn't cry during Trump's victory. I didn't cry when Obama won. I'm trying to think the last time I cried that involved politics. It had to have been during 9/11, but that wasn't political, or was it? But at least in my recent memory, to my knowledge, nothing has caused me to cry like this, or cry at all. And waking up to seeing Roe v. Wade being overturned did it to me. It did it to me, It stabbed me and twisted the knife. Because even though we kind of saw this coming, I was still holding out an inkling of hope that because that press release leaked a month or two ago, that in that time frame, the Supreme Court justices would have done their due diligence and understood the shit storm, the ending of all things, really, if they proceeded with that. Not to mention, we know who's going to vote for what, and those individuals, now we know the 6 who did, that voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, surely they had to have known that if I vote against abortion access, I won't be able to leave my house. I won't be able to go into restaurants. I won't be able to go into crowded areas unless it's full of lobbyists or Republicans and it's a money raising. And yet, those cocksucking traitorous bastards at the Supreme Court did it anyway. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but I still am. I'm shocked, actually. I have never felt such sadness and anger against the Supreme Court before. I have felt it towards politicians before, don't get me wrong. Trump pops to mind. But the anger I'm feeling towards the conservative justices, which it sure seems like they lied during their confirmation hearings, and of course Susan Collins is coming out, they didn't say to me that they would do this. Well, Susan Collins, you're a dumb bitch then, and you're a dumber bitch now. You just have to wonder how different all of this would have been if just a few things went a different way. And I'll get into that in a second here, but they lied during the confirmation hearing, specifically Comey Barrett and Kavanaugh. Gorsuch, who the fuck knows? I'm not hearing a lot of shit about Gorsuch. But yeah, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Comey Barrett, Alito, and Clarence Thomas. And was it Kennedy that was the swing vote? I don't remember. But yeah, 6-3 decision. And what's even more upsetting is you can't focus your time just on the knowledge that the Supreme Court struck down a 50-year law. When you read the opinion concurring with the majority, written by probably one of the worst human beings alive, Clarence Thomas, he wrote an opinion. He urged the court to apply that reasoning to other landmark cases, including overturning the precedents on contraceptives and LGBTQ rights, gay marriage, gay equality. This is not going to stop at abortion rights, is my point. It's going to get worse. And I don't understand how there's not rioting in the streets. I'm not seeing property damage. I'm not seeing shit burning to the ground. I am completely surprised that no protesters have stormed the Supreme Court building, taken the conservative justices out, and do the old Mussolini to them. And if that did happen, I would fucking celebrate. Because I don't condone violence, death, normally. But after today, I have now seen democracy has just failed us. It doesn't exist in this USA anymore. This is not the America that I was brought up believing in. This is not the America that I was taught. This is not the America that was promised to me, basically. And when I look at what has been happening over the last decade or so and what I see is coming, We are not a first world nation anymore. I think we're a third world nation dressed as a first world nation, but it's all fucking lies. We're not even wolf in sheep's clothing. We're sheep in wolves' clothing. So sad. Because if we just did a few things differently, then this never would have happened. And I know a lot of people want to play the blame game here. And I do too. And I can give you a list of names of who I believe that this is the fault of. But if you really think about it, this has been a law since the 70s. The Democrats have had 5 presidents in that time or more. I don't know. But they had a supermajority a number of times. I know we had a supermajority under Biden and Obama and Clinton's first terms. And yet they never could codify abortion. We had 50 years since Carter that we could have codified abortion, and it never fucking happened. And then this happens, and we can't do anything about it. And you hear what those in power are saying about this, and everything they're saying is on the up and up. Biden, Kamala Harris, the Obamas, even some Republicans, they're all coming out and saying, oh, this is not right, and blah, 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 blah. Well, then you could have codified it. How did you not see this coming? Oh, and then you have to ask yourself, how did we get here? And you wonder how those fucking Supreme Court justices got there, which is a whole kind of Game of Thrones story. You just have to question what kind of society allows this to happen. When we have a country that still, somehow, some way, is still gridlocked in a two-party system. When you're in a two-party system, it is so easy to have one of the parties fall into radicalism, which is exactly what's happening with the Republicans. You cannot tell me that the current Republican Party is not an extremist. It is not radical. It is extremist. How is it not? And there is no other option for Republican voters. Now, if there was 2 or 3 Republican parties, and the same with the Democrats, I don't think this kind of shit would happen. Sure, you could have 1 or 2 parties at a time backsliding into extremism, but you're not going to get all of them, and that's what we have here. You have 2 parties, and one is fucking nuts. It's lost its goddamn mind. But what other options are you going to give these Republican voters when they look at the Hillarys and the Obamas and the Bidens and the Clintons? They see lizard people that are corrupt and drinking baby juice from fucking aborted fetuses. And only some of those things are true. That's why I think Donald Trump had such success as being an outsider. Because when he was out there saying, hey, everyone that I'm running against on the Republican ballot here, they're all corrupt. They're all elitist. And he's not wrong. And then he pointed to the Democrats and said the same thing, and he's not wrong. But the problem is Trump is a fascist. He wants to be king or a dictator. And he's out of his fucking mind due to his small Cheeto dick, and his narcissism is fatter than he is. And that's saying something. That's quite an achievement. And so you vote someone in like a Donald Trump because you truly believe that you need an outsider to kind of run things. And you know what? I don't think his supporters were absolutely wrong the first time around. And I still believe that, you know, maybe we do need an outsider to help steer the ship right. Because I'm not seeing anybody in the Democratic field, and I've given up on the Republicans. I mean, I gave up on the Republicans when I was a toddler. I saw that shit for what it truly is. It just fills me with such powerless sadness. I am so angry and depressed, but I don't know what to do. Sure, I could go march with like-minded people, but that's not going to change things, especially on the West Coast. Why would I go to a Seattle march in support of abortion rights? Well, of course, it's Seattle. That kind of shit needs to happen in D.C., outside the Capitol building, outside the Supreme Court building. It needs to happen in Texas and what, the 20-something states, 25 states, about half of this country's states are going to outright outlaw abortion or make it damn near impossible to get one, which puts an incredible burden on the rest of the states that do believe in equality and that women are people too. I'm shocking. I mean, that's so radical that we believe women should have equal rights and should determine what to do with their body. I mean, amazing. I know that's out of left field. You know, I know that's so extreme. Can you imagine if there was the amount of women mass shooters as there are men's, we would have taken the right for a woman to buy a gun away immediately. After the second mass shooting, women would not be allowed to buy guns. Oh, this fucking country. I mean, we are a shithole country in this department. How are we not? I just talked about it in the last podcast. The last few years, there's been a lot of first world nations across the world that are holding elections, and they're going to the left. They're going the Bernie Sanders progressive route. Not all the time. Sometimes it is a scary Trumper, but more often than not, it is someone that is seen as a leftist populist, or just someone that has common sense and progressive ideologies, or just left ideologies, like a Bernie Sanders. But America, we're doing the complete opposite. How could you have a president like Donald Trump that lost the popular vote twice, somehow have the ability to put up 3 Supreme Court justices? I mean, it boggles the mind how we still have the Electoral College in this country, why we still have the filibuster. Just imagine what kind of amazing things could have happened in this country decades ago if we got rid of those 2 dinosaur relics. I don't think there's a way to fix this unless we build a time machine and go back in time and assassinate Reagan, Pat Buchanan, and Newt Gingrich, because I think that's when the evangelicals really took hold of the Republican Party, and this is how we got to this point. They've been working on overturning Roe v. Wade ever since the 70s, but really got their shit together in the 80s, and this is the payoff. This is the payoff that 20% of the country wants. Again, a minority that is hurting everybody is in power here. I don't think even 20% of the country believe that abortion should be illegal. I think it's probably in the low teens, if you're asking my opinion, but you consistently hear 20%, nice round number. So you have 20% of the population dictating to the other 80% what's going to go down. That is not acceptable. That should not be happening in a goddamn democracy. But I think anyone with common sense and a brain can see over the last few decades, we haven't been a democracy for some time. We've mostly been an oligarchy by companies and the 1%. So that bullshit like this happens, and now it's, instead of it being a human issue, which is what it is, it's a cultural issue. It's going to be made a political issue. You're already seeing Donald Trump and the Mike Pences of the world celebrating the decision and saying they're going to run on it. DeSantis is now doing something in Florida that's going to really restrict abortion. So you know that Republicans in 2024 in the midterms, abortion is going to be a big fuck deal. And so the Democrats are going to basically run on abortion while the Republicans are going to run on inflation. And that's the fucking problem, is both things are massively important and are killing this country right now. But eventually, inflation will end. A woman's right to choose, that shit will be taken away for good if the Republicans take over. And if they win the election in 2024, God help us all. I don't want to leave this country, but I'm definitely thinking about it. Who would have thought Colombia would be a more progressive country than America? But I kind of mentioned earlier, how did we get here? And in my opinion, I think I can tell you a blueprint for how we got here. And if you want to point fingers, you got to start with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and President Obama. After President Obama put up Sotomayor, he wanted to put another Supreme Court justice up. This was his last term in office, and he saw the writing on the wall, what was happening in this country. And he asked Ruth Bader Ginsburg multiple times to retire so that he could nominate her successor, and that old bitch refused. Now, I know she's seen as a hero by a lot of people, and I think minus this incident, she is one of the better Supreme Court justices we've ever had. But let's be real here. Abortion would still be legal if that bitch retired under Obama. She chose her legacy. She chose hubris. She chose narcissism and pride over what's better for the country. Because you know what happens, people. She refused to retire multiple times to Obama, and then she died under Trump, and then Trump got yet another Supreme Court pick. But back to Obama. So after Ruth Bader Ginsburg refused to retire, Obama still had a chance to put up a Supreme Court justice up. I forget the reasons why, but that's the infamous Mitch McConnell saying, nope, we are not even going to hold a vote during the election year for a Supreme Court justice pick, which has never been done before and was highly illegal. That Obama saying he didn't have the votes, which I think was an excuse, chose not to fight fire with fire. I'm sure the President of the United States has the power to vote in a Supreme Court justice regardless of what the Speaker of the House has to say. Surely he could have done something. Surely he could have played dirty. Surely, again, Obama just would have flexed a little bit of fucking muscle. He would have had yet another Supreme Court justice nomination. And in a perfect world, he would have had 3, including Sotomayor. So that Trump would have only had 1 instead of 3, which is how we get to this point. And you can't blame Trump for picking the 3 that he did, because he knew his base. He knew what those fucking radicals wanted. So he put up Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Comey Barrett. The last 2 are crazy scary Christians, and I should know I was raised by them. And everyone wanted to focus on Kavanaugh allegedly raping a girl or attempting to rape a girl when he was a teenager, like unfortunately most men try to do, instead of focusing on his right-wing extremist voting record as a judge. But no, that barely got a whisper. It was all, hey, 40-something years ago when he was a teenager, he did some shit. And then he cried like a baby bitch, which again showed me, okay, this guy cannot hold office. He can't, how can he be a Supreme Court justice? Look at him. He's blubbering like a little baby bitch. But yet, you knew he was going to get confirmed, and you knew Comey Barrett was going to get confirmed. And just like that, Trump, who lost the popular vote twice, was able to put 3 justices on, where in reality, if there was a God, he would have only had the ability to do 1, and Obama would have done 3 in 8 years instead of Trump doing 3 in 4 years. So, there's my blame game right there. Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Obama started this current Supreme Court crisis. Now, if you want to look back long term, I already said we had multiple Democratic presidents with supermajorities who could never codify abortion. It's all on them. I blame each and every Democratic president from Carter up to Biden for not being able to codify abortion rights. You had 50 years, you fucking idiots. And you wonder why some people will never vote for the Democrats. Seeing them as disorganized, they have so much infighting. And then you try to fight against that notion, and then you look at them and say, well, that's actually all correct. The Republicans do that shit behind closed doors. You don't see it as much. But the Republicans are just straight up evil. And because of this, I don't know if I'll ever vote Republican again, nor will I ever vote for a Christian holding office again that makes their religion a priority. How will I ever vote for them again? How will anybody with like mind as well vote like that again? Because people, I don't mean to be dramatic here, but I think today, in my opinion, is worse than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. How could it not be if you think about it? Pearl Harbor and 9/11 were done by outside forces, allegedly. But abortion being overturned, we did this to ourselves. It was not an inside job. It wasn't a foreign country or foreign asset doing this shit. We did this. We did this. And more people are going to die because of today than Pearl Harbor and 9/11 combined, I fear. Because let's face cold hard facts here. Rich women, predominantly white, let's be real, will always be able to get an abortion, no matter if they live in Texas, Alabama, Georgia, it doesn't matter. Rich women in general will always be able to get a safe abortion. It's the poor people. It's the working class people. It's women of color. Let's face facts. It's going to be 80% of women are not going to have those same breaks. And what's going to happen? You're going to get more backdoor abortions. You're going to have more deaths. You're going to have doctors being thrown in prison. Handmaid's Tale is not that far off, which I just realized Handmaid's Tale is a white ripoff of Harriet Tubman. Leave it to the fucking white women to steal Harriet Tubman and whiteify her and make her more of a hero, and then we celebrate it. God damn, white people are crazy. But yeah, so this is a very sad day, very angry. I mean, I'm violently angry. Thank God I'm not in DC. I don't know what I would do. This is the kind of shit that it makes me feel like, okay, well, this country has failed. We are a few weeks away from becoming Venezuela or Syria. So, hey, let's start marching. And not politely. Let's not do the George Floyd level of protests. Let's do the Antifa George Floyd level of protests. And I want to see some blood. And that's the problem. I don't like feeling like this. I have not felt like this before in my life. Yes, I've been angry. Yes, I maybe wish death on a few individuals, but I feel like this country is now rotten to the core because this isn't going to stop here, like I said. So let's just say, worst case scenario, we lose gay marriage, we lose gay equality, we lose LGBTQ rights, we lose the right to contraceptives. Okay, that's all awful and horrific and end of days. But do you think it's going to stop there? No. And if the Republicans win, what do you think is going to happen next? They're going to take away the vote for anyone of color. They're not going to allow any Muslims in here. You're going to let churches and the rich just run rampant. You're going to have wars happening all over the place. And so I can't see it getting better. We are not a democracy. If you think that, okay, well, abortion is going to make a lot of people vote blue in the next midterm, I hope so. But what about you live in the many states, coincidentally the same states that are trying to restrict abortion rights? How are you going to vote when they restrict voting in those states? Did you forget what's been happening? You know, in some places in Texas and Georgia, and it's always people of color areas, it takes them hours and hours and hours and hours to cast a ballot in person because they outlawed mail-in voting. But yet you go to the rich suburb areas, there's 3 or 4 precincts open to voting, and people get in and out within minutes. You have to commute hours to get from the poor area to that area. So even if you want to change, will you even be able to? And they're already trying to throw out votes, even though currently, I've talked about some on the podcast or some of the stories, but all the voter fraud they're finding, it's all been Republican. There hasn't been any Democrat or progressive individual that's been caught illegally voting. It's always Republicans. So, riddle me that one, Batman. If you want to vote, you may not have the option to. And you think we're going to extend voting rights? I don't think so. So the only hope I see is in Gen Z. I was reading an article the other day. I think there's 40 million registered voters of Generation Z. And I don't think there's many Republicans or conservative Christians in that fucking generation. Don't get me wrong, they still are. But I don't think it's the majority. I don't even think it's a quarter. It may be a quarter, but I don't know. But just based on the Gen Zs that I know, it's not fucking high. So it's really going to be up to them because they're young and they will vote and they will fight and protest any and all kind of bullshit. I mean, as a millennial, I'm an ally to all that shit, but it's really the Gen Zs that are taking over on that and the younger millennials. As an older millennial, I'll do what I can. I'll give you support. I'll even donate to your cause financially because goddamn, we need as much help as motherfucking possible here. Because in the vein of probably going to get worse, it sure seems like Biden wants to run again, even though his approval rating is anywhere between 38 and 42%. And you can't imagine it's going to get better anytime soon unless he does some really radical shit like forgiving student loan debt, legalizing marijuana. His proposed gas tax holidays, bullshit. That's not going to do a goddamn thing for inflation. He really should stop giving Ukraine billions and billions of dollars and instead try to have a peace deal there and then start buying Russian oil again. Because you know what, motherfuckers? All of those sanctions that we put on Russia did exactly what I thought would happen. It hurt the majority of people, but it didn't hurt the government or the rich. Russia is now actually making more money now than it ever has from oil leases because, yes, most of the Western world has stopped buying Russian oil, but do you know who still is buying Russian oil? India and China. And do you know what India and China are doing with that oil? Selling it at a double price to all these burgeoning nations that need it, and then selling it to us as well at a double the price. So not only are we paying higher to fill up our gas tank because of the Putin tax hike, but Putin now has more money than he ever has from oil. So that's fucking backfired. And it sure looks like Ukraine, you know, again, they're fighting heroically, but Russia is dominating right now. So, what the fuck, man? You may have to admit it didn't work and try something else, like let's try making a peace deal. But anyway, I digress. But if Biden chooses to run, he's going to get slaughtered unless he does some crazy shit. So any Republican is probably going to trounce Biden as it is right now, whether it be Trump, Trump Jr., DeSantis, Pence, you name it. Well, then you look at, let's see, Biden sees the light and decides to drop out and say, you know what, I wanted to be a 2-term president, but it's not working out. I'm going to now focus on Durka and drop out. Give me a Democrat that has any kind of likening by the independents or the Republican voters out there that are willing to switch. Who has a decent approval record outside of Bernie Sanders? Which, as much as I love that man, he's older than Trump, and I think he's as old as Biden, if I'm not mistaken. And do we really want a fucking 80-something-year-old as president, even though he's the best one we got? Obviously, if it's between him and anyone else, I'm going to vote for him. But I just don't know. He's obviously our best bet, but that shows you how shitty it is. So you look at it as an outsider. I would personally like a Marianne Williamson or a Jon Stewart. I don't want there to be just some fucking Hollywood idiot like a George Clooney or a Mark Ruffalo or a Rock or a Perlman that gets out there. Because, no, you're an outsider and you're coming from the wrong part of the outside universe. Trump comes from the business world, on the marketing and whatever world. Which, hey, it worked well for him. But if you want an outsider that actually believes in things and it's going to be compassionate, you can't do any better than a Marianne Williamson or a Jon Stewart. And again, I still would support Bernie Sanders over both of them. And I would also throw in maybe a Katie Porter or a Nina Turner out there too. I think their names are pretty much well known amongst the progressives, and they're such good orators that if given the chance to have an open town hall debate with a bunch of other moderates, they could really shine. But the field is small for the Democrats, and the margin of error is slim. Because outside Bernie, I think the media could really embarrass Marianne Williamson, make her look like a cuckoo, even though she's really not. They can make Jon Stewart seem like a Hollywood elitist, even though he's not. They can make Nina Turner sound like a loud, shrill black woman, which they will absolutely do. I hope that doesn't work. And they can make Katie Porter just being inexperienced, which is not true either. So, again, people, it doesn't look good. Even if the Democrats somehow define the odds and do not horribly during the midterms, let's say they still get their asses handed to them, they're not as bad. I mean, if that's a win, then that tells you how bad the fucking atmosphere is right now. And I'm sorry, but right now, Joe, you cannot run for re-election. You have got to primary Joe Biden. Do you think Kamala Harris is going to win? Fuck no. I don't even think her husband would vote for her. That cuck. You look at, Pete Buttigieg? No. You look at, Elizabeth Warren? Nobody likes her. Amy Klobuchar? Nah, not really. Maybe Stacey Abrams. But again, people, think. And send me who you think would be a better alternative that I haven't thought of. Because I'm really racking my brain here, people, and I cannot think of a good moderate Democrat. And any of the progressives I think will just be torn to shreds. Because if Bernie was the best put together one, and you saw what the Obamas did to him, you saw what the Clintons did to him, you saw what the MSNBCs and the CNNs did to him, you saw what the DNC did to him, do you really think they're going to do anything different to a Marianne Williamson or a Jon Stewart or a Nina Turner or Katie Porter? I mean, come on, I don't think they're so. And it can't be any of the squad, because so much of the population just discredits the squad because of Fox News. And let's face it, the Democratic leaders in power, like Pelosi and Schumer, have not helped the progressives nor the squad's reputation. So, people, I don't know what to tell you. I'm trying to think of how to end this on a happy note, but it sure seems tough to be happy today. I am just rage-filled and sad, and I feel powerless, and I don't want to cry because that's not going to solve anything. I just wish that I could march somewhere and make a difference, because my legacy is not important to me. I don't have children. I don't have, that I know of. I'm not married. I don't have a family. It's just me. And I can understand now why so many young men strap bombs to themselves and run into a crowded area and yell Allahu Akbar or yell whatever religious connotation they want and then explode themselves and taking out as many civilians as possible. I can understand that logic now. Although I will never understand a mass slaughter of civilians. If you want to make a difference and you want to sacrifice yourself, surely you want to go to a place of power, a place of law, a place that's causing all of this. Surely you don't want to go to a coffee shop or a cafe or a bookstore, you dumb fucks. If you're going to suicide bomb yourself, do it right, all right? You only get one chance at it. I know that's a little dark, people, but I'm trying to make humor out of a awful situation here. So with that, I think we're done. I really don't want to talk about anything else. Obviously, nothing has happened in my personal life since the last recording. I've just been talking with my parents today about things, talking to some friends, and this is a group therapy day for sure. This is a group therapy day. I think not just for us, but just for the whole country. And then you see how this decision is having a rippling effect across the world. I mean, you look how the BBC is covering this, and it's horror. It's what the fuck is happening. America used to be a shining light on the top of a hill to guide us home. And now it is a banana republic. It is a house of cards. We had our time in the spotlight, kids. Rome did, Greece did, Egypt did, Britain did, France did, Germany did, and we did. We had a good run, but now it's someone else's turn to lead the world because we did a piss poor job near the end, and we only have ourselves to blame for our inevitable slide into right-wing Christian evangelical oblivion. And I will fall in kicking and screaming and doing everything that I can to fight and rage against it, but today all you can do is grab a joint and hope for the best, people. Treat others with respect and try to love one another, especially in days like this. Listen to people, have some empathy and compassion. And if you are pro-life, don't be a cunt and rub it in people's faces. Don't cheer on. This isn't a sports victory. This is going to kill a lot of people. This is going to ruin a lot of lives. It's going to ruin a lot of women's lives, and of course it's going to ruin children's lives, all because of your mythical white man with a beard in the motherfucking sky. It's so sad that in this country, guns and the Bible have more rights than women. But on that happy note, peace out. I love you.